Okay, let's roll. My name is Jeff Anderson, and I'm also here with my colleague, attorney Mark Proman. And we are standing here today with some very courageous survivors. And together we and our firms, and in partnership with survivors, have released what we call the Anderson report of clergy who have been publicly accused in the state of Illinois. This report not only lists the offenders who have been publicly accused, it pictures them and also identifies the locations that are available where they worked. In each of the dioceses, in all of the parishes, and the schools, and the locations across the state. The report identifies 395 clerics and brothers, all of whom have been publicly accused of childhood sexual abuse. Why have we gone to the extent that we have to both prepare this report, to post it on our website, and disseminate this publicly? We've chosen to reveal this information because the Catholic bishops and the religious orders who are in charge and have this information and hold it secret have chosen to conceal it. We have chosen to reveal it. The Catholic bishops in Illinois and in each of the dioceses so far have revealed 192 names of those clerics who they have deemed to be what they call credibly accused. That means that the Catholic bishops decided they had committed the crimes and thus put them on their list. Our list has more than 203 names in addition to theirs. Why is that so? Because those at the top have chosen not to believe so many survivors for so many years who have come forward with reports and have chosen then to keep secret not only the identities of those offenders, 395 of whom we've identified in this report who have been publicly accused, but those who have been complicit in that concealment at the top. So this report, the Anderson report, is just a beginning. But it's important that we reveal as much information as we can and do it with the kind of rigor we have. We also have two survivors standing with us today who are going to address what it means to them to have this information revealed. To my right is Joe Icano, and to my left is Cindy Yesko. And before we talk more about this report and the importance of it and how we've discerned this, I'd like to hear from you first, Joe, why you stand with us and what this means to you today.
Thank you, Jeff. It was in the early in the early 1960s. That I was abused. His name is right here. Thomas Francis Kelly. Sorry for the tears. He was a friend of our family. He was someone that I looked up to. He groomed me. And the abuse happened. Of course, I didn't know what to do. I was about 11 years old. I wasn't always this fat and gray. And thank goodness for Jeff Anderson and Mark Perlman. The Catholic Church, I grew up as a Catholic, believed very strongly as a Catholic. My parents were Catholic. Through their actions, they have destroyed my foundation for morality, for values, for trust. But all of that now has come back to me through therapy, through my loving wife, and through Jeff and through Mark. They gave us our power back. I'm so proud to stand here with other survivors, Tim and Cindy. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to come up here and do this. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm just telling you it's not easy because it stirs up all the memories. But the Catholic Church has been nothing but deceitful, as you know, and lying for many, many years. The priest that abused me was moved to 8 different parishes, and he was moved to those parishes for what reason? Was it in the best interest of the Catholic children? Absolutely not, because he abused in every parish that he went to.
Joe, what does it mean?
To protect him.
What does it mean to you to have all these names, which aren't complete, but more complete than what has ever been revealed, to be revealed today, and have that offender on this list? What does it mean to you as a survivor?
Well, what it means to me is that we finally are holding them accountable. And that's being done by yourself and Mark. And I'm seeing now how many priests were actually pedophiles. And it gives me strength. It gives me power to know that I'm not alone.
And it gives us hope that we can protect other kids.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe. And Cindy Yesko, why don't you just come forward for a minute and share with us why you're here and briefly what it means to you today to know that there are some names behind us that are now being revealed that never have been, and why we assemble today. And I think it deserves to be said, as I stand with 2 courageous survivors and among so many survivors for so many years, that it is the survivors that are the revealers. And they usually went to those they trusted first with those secrets that they had held for so long, and that was the Catholic Church hierarchy. This report makes these survivors that stand with us every day in this journey the revealers. And we're honored to be a part of the revelations that are so painful, but yet so necessary in making the disclosure of 395 publicly accused child molesters here today. Cindy Yesko, what say you to this?
Thank you, Jeff. This is a very profound day for me, and I'm sure not just for me, as we've heard from Joe, from every victim, every survivor who has been hurt by these individuals. And as Jeff said, this is not an exhaustive list. There's a much larger list, but this is the start. What this means to me is transparency. These names are now in the light. And when something is brought to the light, it becomes part of the light. In other words, people now know to ask their children, have you been hurt by any of these individuals who are still in active ministry, who are still alive, or who retired or are already deceased. Were you hurt? We know this person. This person crossed our path. Or maybe these people didn't cross our path. Maybe we don't even know you had a connection to this person. But parents can now ask. We have a way. We have a foundation now so that we can look at a list. It's incomplete, but it's the beginning. And what this means for me, this is all I wanted. When I came forward in 2006 to report the abuse, I came forward because I had just discovered that one of my perpetrators was still alive. I thought they were both deceased. And when I found out one was currently living, within weeks, I was sitting in front of the diocese officials telling my story. And all I wanted was for people to know he's still alive. He's in a parish with children. It's a parish connected to a school. And the parents there deserve to know
And,
that he hurt me.
and Cindy Yesko, those two names of the people that you identify as your perpetrators have not been publicly disclosed before, and they are on this list. Why don't you go to the board and show us who they are and where they are in the report. Let's go over here. Identify them.
Father Lou Schlagen. Father Stanley Younger.
Thank you, Cindy. Come on forward. Come on close. When Cindy came forward, as has so often been the case across the state and across this country, they chose not to believe her. We chose, through her courage and that of so many other survivors and the investigation we've done, to now reveal those names among the 395, and there's so much more work to do. Diocese of
Springfield.
Springfield.
A couple questions. First, I thought you had said that in one way or another, all of these have been publicly named before. But Ms. Yesko is saying that this is the first time these two priests' names have ever been revealed. So have they been in news accounts before?
When we came forward with her and she brought suit,
Okay.
those names were identified
Okay.
as the people who had offended, and Cindy Yesko is one of those people that brought those names public. So the list of that we have included in this report are all those names who we have been able to find who have been publicly accused. It doesn't mean they have been adjudicated, or it doesn't mean they've been litigated. It doesn't mean they have been found guilty, because most of the offenders are never charged criminally or held accountable in a court because of two reasons. When the report is made to top officials, they keep that secret, the clock ticks, and the statute of limitations runs out for criminal prosecution. And then when somebody like Cindy Yesko makes a report of something that happened 35 or more years ago, it's too late to prosecute if they're still alive. And top officials, more often than not, choose not to believe the reporter, especially if it's one survivor coming forward.
Are either of these two folks, the people that have used it, have they been deemed credibly accused, or are they still not credibly accused by the diocese?
In the case of Joe Icano, they put him on their list. That means the Archdiocese of Chicago put Kelly on the list, and he's deemed to be credibly accused. Springfield has not.
Sir.
So let me just conclude with a couple of remarks. It's important to emphasize that when the Attorney General released her report in December of 2018. The Attorney General, based on reports given their office, identified that there were 500 individuals who they get reports of who they had determined may have never been believed or publicly revealed. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
And so this effort, as soon as we saw that, based on what we've known over the years in working in this field, is that we knew we had to begin the journey of gathering that information that they could not and did not disclose. And this report of 395 does not even reach the 500 mark, and there are many more to be done, and the work continues.
Sir, I'm with WBEZ News. I was talking to the Archdiocese of Chicago this morning, and they said that every person named on this list from the Archdiocese of Chicago had been reported to the authorities, that they'd all been made public by the Archdiocese. With that in mind, what do you see the main purpose of this list being, if you're not raising any new names here?
Well, the question is the Archdiocese has correctly said that they have reported every report that they've gotten or that we have given them to law enforcement. And that's correct.
We believe it's correct.
And we're not disputing that. But what we do dispute is the disclosures that each of the Catholic bishops have made in Illinois.
What do you mean by that exactly?
The lists that they have disseminated publicly of the priests who are credibly accused are underreported and deficient, and that the peril is much graver than what they have told the public. And so the purpose, let me finish. The purpose of this report is to disclose the scope of the peril that the Catholic bishops have chosen not to disclose and keep secret.
They also pointed out a couple of priests, including, for example, Michael O'Connell, who was investigated by authorities, and according to the Archdiocese of Chicago, was found innocent and is still working. By putting the names of people who might have been investigated and actually cleared as opposed to being just unsubstantiated. What's the thinking behind that? Is that potentially problematic?
Our report indicates that Michael O'Connell in the Archdiocese, who's at St. Alphonsus, has been determined to be not credibly accused by the Archdiocese. The information that we've discerned publicly is that there were 2 allegations, and he's currently in ministry. And he has not been adjudicated to have been found guilty, and the Archdiocese has chosen to not believe the reports that have been made, but we do know that there are 2 allegations that have been made, and that is public, and thus we believe the public needs to know. And we also know that their decisions, more often than not, as was stated in the Pennsylvania grand jury, to not disclose are made 2/3 of the time a report is made. And so O'Connell may be innocent, but given the fact that there are 2 public allegations that have been made against him, we feel and believe that needs to be publicly disclosed as somebody who has just been publicly accused and not adjudicated.
Okay.
Mark Perlman.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that. First of all, the fact that it's reported to the police should not necessarily be the standard that the Archdiocese or any diocese is using with respect to credibility. So as Jeff said, more often than not, when these matters were reported to police, the statute of limitations has already run. If that's the case, there is no charge. The person cannot be arrested. The person cannot be prosecuted. That doesn't mean they did not commit the crime. It means that they can't be prosecuted for the crime. Furthermore, anybody in law enforcement will tell you that their burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, and that typically in these crimes, there are no witnesses. It's one person's word against the others. And because there are no witnesses, and when you have one person's word against another person's word, oftentimes police, state's attorneys determine that they cannot charge. Again, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And if the diocese is using that standard as their burden, if they're relying on law enforcement, and if law enforcement chooses not to charge, if that's what they're basing, whether something is substantiated or not substantiated, I would say that's not appropriate and they're using the wrong standard.
Are you
What
concerned,
standard
are
should
you
they use?
concerned that you're putting names of people who were innocent? Or did you do your own little investigations to show that there's something to it? Because putting these guys' names on it, you say they haven't been credibly accused, but are you running the risk you're putting innocent people on this list?
We are rigorous in researching all those names and identities and histories, come on close, of those that have been publicly accused. And somebody asked the question, what is the purpose of releasing the Anderson list? And this is the first, we have released many across the country involving other dioceses. This is the first time we've done a statewide comprehensive report such as this. And the purpose is twofold. One is to let the public know about what has been publicly reported about who has been accused so the kids can be protected. And two, to let survivors who are suffering in secrecy and silence, who may or may not have made a report to the Catholic bishops, and who weren't believed, is that they're not alone. And so that they may have the opportunity to come forward and be believed and be heard and get help. And so it is twofold.
Do you have any qualms about ruining the reputations, possibly, of innocent people?
We always have qualms about concerns about ruining reputations of individuals. And I've been in this space for 35 years, and when I disseminate this information publicly, I have yet to be sued over it because I've yet to make that mistake. And I rigorously vet this information to make sure it's already been publicly disseminated. And all we're saying when we issue a report such as this is public information. It's already been posted on Bishop Accountability. It's already as a result of a settlement that we or somebody else has already been made, that's been made with a diocese or archdiocese. It's a result of litigation that has already been brought civilly or otherwise. So this is not just a random assortment of individuals. It's a serious vetting done over months by dozens of people to make sure that when we go public with a list such as this, we are erring on the side of protection of children, helping the survivors that have been hurt, and making sure we can be as accurate as is humanly possible and answering the public safety imperative. And that's not a choice the Catholic bishops have made. They have chosen to keep it secret.
Why do you think they have then? Why not be forthcoming? They have with some cases or hundreds of cases. Why?
Why
do you think they're keeping things secret?
Because they are a system that works to preserve the reputation of that system, that is the top officials and the offenders among it. It's been documented by us and others for 35 years, and they make the choice to conceal rather than reveal. We're making the choice to reveal.
Jeff,
I'd like to
wouldn't
say-
they that you're
I'm not going to debate. I got
wouldn't they
any
say
other
you're
questions?
trying to get clients, though?
Well, I wish I didn't have to have clients. So, any other questions?
I'd like to say one additional comment.
Can we get you
With
a mic?
respect to,
Can we get you in front of the mic, please?
Oh,
thank you.
with respect to this list, the vast majority of the people on this list, the dioceses or from Illinois or religious orders, have settled claims by these folks.
So for them to suggest that there's you know, a significant portion of these names that are unsubstantiated, suggests that, you know, then why were they paying money to resolve these claims? Now, I understand sometimes you do that, but it's not just a list of names where they were accused and nothing ever happened, or that they were necessarily, as Jeff said, acquitted by a court of law. These are names where most of them, either a diocese or a religious order has paid. And with respect to why do they release some of the names and not others, my experience and Jeff's experience, and for 35 years for Jeff and 20 years for me, is they release names when they have to, when they have no choice. Any doubt of whether they should or shouldn't is always resolved in not releasing the name. So what we see is the absolute minimum where we perceive it as they have no choice. For example, what is their excuse for not releasing religious order names? Catholics in the state of Illinois, that is a distinction without a difference. They don't go to a church and say, I wonder, am I being led by an order priest or a diocesan priest? So I think that answers the question.
Do you have a percentage? Do you have a percentage of the ones that were settled? Do you have a ballpark percentage or number?
We have not made a calculation in the numbers that have resulted in settlements. That's just not, it's not a discernment we have made.
What standard should the archdiocese use when deeming something credible? Is it more than one accusation, more than two? I mean, what you said that the standard they're using is whether someone can be criminally charged. But if they're not doing that, I mean, what standard do you guys use to vet something to make sure it's credible?
The question is twofold. What standard should an archdiocese or Catholic bishop use in making a disclosure? The standard they should use that they haven't used in most instances, and historically across the state and across the country, is to have outside professionals investigate. Instead, they choose to investigate it themselves. And more often than not, their investigation consists of going to the priest and asking him if he did it. And then 99% of the time, the priest says no. And then 90% of the time, they choose to believe the priest and not the survivor or the victim who's reporting it. As the Pennsylvania grand jury report found and was issued publicly a year ago, the grand jury found that 2/3 of the reports made to the Catholic bishops in Pennsylvania were not believed by the Catholic bishops in Pennsylvania.
As I look through here, it looks like a lot of them are dead, or you say that they're unknown where they are. Do you have any clue how many might still be having contact with parishioners' children?
Well, the question is many of those who are listed here are deceased. And it sometimes begs the question, then why do you make those names public, knowing that they've been publicly accused but still deceased? And the reason is the trail of abuse is still in the lives of the survivors still evergreen, and many of them thinking they're the only ones and suffering alone in secrecy. And sexual abuse flourishes in secrecy. And so we believe that making the names of the deceased offenders who have been publicly accused public is really important to help survivors get help and the full truth be known, not the half-truth that gets revealed by the bishops.
Can you explain?
How many
the
are
best-
administrative?
Okay.
to that list?
We track and locate right now. I think we've identified at least I underlined 4 that we know that are in ministry, but all under restrictions and none active right now, other than Icano, as far as we can tell.
I'm sorry.
As I was saying before, can you try to address to the best of your ability your understanding of the AG's number of the 500 versus your 395? What might they have had access to that you didn't in doing your work?
Well, the Illinois Attorney General received reports from survivors and assembled the information and then issued their report. And in it, they identified that 695 different names had been revealed to them. And they also identified in their report that they believe that there were as many as 500 who had not been publicly disclosed or credibly accused by the Catholic bishops and the religious organizations in the state of Illinois. So our number of 395 in no doubt overlaps some of the 500, but right now, because they didn't disclose those names and we were able to assemble these names and go to the extent we did, those are the numbers we have right now. And we have others that we're looking at, but we're not prepared to disclose publicly, and we'll continue that journey.
So
Did you say-
possibly
did you
it's
say
from the
one?
hotline that they set up to receive the complaints from the victims? Is that kind of what you're saying that could contribute to the number of reports that they received?
That's right.
Okay.
That's
And
right.
we just don't know what the overlap is
Right.
between our 395 and their 500. It might be a lot or it might be a little.
Did you say only one of these names is an active working priest right now? Of the 395?
No, there are many that are still priests, but under restriction. But there's only one that we've been able to identify that is still in ministry, that is on this list. But we aren't able to discern all that. So that's what we know today. That's what we know today.
So one of the 395 is still in active ministry? Is that the best way to say that?
That's what we believe.
Is that priest in Chicago? or-
Yes,
Is that Icano?
yes.
Okay.
And 4 under restriction?
Well, there are more than that under restriction, and I haven't identified the numbers that are under restriction right now. Many are deceased, of
And
course.
we don't know what under restriction means either. I have no idea what that means.
So what I do want to close with is deep gratitude to the courageous survivors who have had the courage to share their secret, and also to the attorney generals across the country who are now doing something that they hadn't done before to help the survivors and the public know the magnitude of the peril. And through these joint efforts, and mostly the courageous and the courage of the survivors in sharing these secrets, we're able to discern this information. We're able to go to all the public sites across this country and determine where there are possible perils and disclose those perils with the belief and hope that by disclosing it, kids will be protected in the future. And that's what Joe, and that's what Cindy, and that's what all the survivors with whom we work want most of all. No further kids to be hurt. And by this report, our intention and our purpose is to just make the truth known as fully and as fairly as we can so that those kids are protected better, and those in charge of making these decisions that have this information are much more transparent in the future than they have been in the past. Thank you so much.
I have one last comment. If the diocese in Illinois and across the country were doing an adequate job, I have a question. Why are there so many attorney generals looking into this right now? Why? And if anybody that read the December 2018 report, it was hardly glowing. I think it's fair to say it was a fairly, certainly objective, and a fairly critical preliminary view of how this matter has been handled in Illinois. And as we know, the grand jury report in Pennsylvania is similar to what the findings are in Illinois, which are similar to what the findings would be in every state in the United States.
So we stand with these survivors, and we stand with them for the revelation of these truths, as painful as they are and as disturbing as you might be about it. We're more disturbed about the secrets that are being kept and the children not being protected. And there's more to come. Thank you all.
Just to be clear, the Archdiocese of Chicago Chicago has taken action against the priest, Mr. Icano accused, or?
Oh, yeah, that priest is deceased
Right, okay.
and on the list of credibly accused.
By the archdiocese. Clergy.
But not for decades after the abuse occurred.
That's right.
And it was after he died. Is that what
You know, I think.
Well, they disclosed it after we sued them and
Post 1990s?
that's right, and caused that name to be put on their list of credibly accused. But it was after the lawsuits that we brought.
There was
because
no
of the
list until
survivors.
2000
And with Ms. Yesko, the archdiocese, or the diocese of Springfield, one is deceased and Springfield did not take action?
That's correct.
I have no idea.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, man.
We don't know.